Hello, welcome. I'm Laura Nicola. I'm your faithful therapist. Thank you for joining me. Today's video is on scrupulosity. First, I need to talk about OCD though. So OCD, otherwise known as obsessive compulsive disorder, falls under the anxiety category of a mental illness. And OCD is unfortunately misinterpreted in kind of today's society as being something that it's not. People kind of casually use the term OCD to describe somebody that, likes things a certain way, or is very orderly, or a little bit more cleanly than other people. And when this is thrown out there, these people are unfortunately kind of adding to the stigma of OCD because they don't quite understand fully what it is, nor are they, kind of giving credit to those that actually do suffer from OCD, which is very much a real psychological disorder. So I'm going to kind of explain just briefly what OCD actually is. So there's two components: obsessions, compulsions, clearly. Obsessions are the intrusive thoughts that a person has that are often irrational and not true and not based in reality, but they feel real to that person. Compulsions, on the other side of that, are the behaviors that a person does in hopes to eradicate the intrusive thought. So they go in tandem. So today's video is going to touch on just like one small part of OCD, and that's scrupulosity. Scrupulosity is overthinking and obsessing about a person's behavior in thinking that it has a morality issue to it. So a person would think that their behavior is maybe sinful or breaking their moral code by their actions, whereas it probably isn't true. So an example would be if a person, is obsessively thinking that they're in a state of mortal sin, even though they're not. The compulsion that follows would be, well, how do I fix this? Well, as a Catholic, I'll go to confession. But they might be doing so in kind of a compulsive way of repetitively going to confession when they don't actually need to, because they're not actually in a state of mortal sin. One of the traps of scrupulosity, especially for Catholics, is that sometimes it feels like the scruples help us get closer to God, right? Like if I'm questioning myself and I'm questioning my thoughts and I'm constantly making sure that I'm in a state of grace, that's great. But sometimes the amount that I go to, or the obsessive nature of my thoughts, or the compulsions that I go to confession every other day, is actually leading me further from God, where it feels like it should be getting me closer to God. So it's kind of tricky in that way. Something that I want to make very clear here is that if you struggle with scrupulosity or OCD, it does not mean that you're a bad Catholic. It doesn't mean that you don't believe scripture when it says, do not be anxious, like 365 times, I think, right? It doesn't mean that. It means that you suffer from a mental illness, and that's biological based, it's psychological based, and it's something that you are meant to overcome, hopefully, with some aid, obviously. So OCD, it's not because of a spiritual deficit that you have. Obviously not, right? And some people, again, have a misconception about that. But OCD can be managed, luckily, and it's complicated though, and so I highly suggest, if you struggle with scrupulosity, or what I'm describing as OCD actually, then I highly suggest seeking out a therapist to help with that. And one other thing, if you don't struggle with scrupulosity or diagnosable OCD, just be really cautious of casually throwing that term out, because again, it tends to add to the stigma, whereas I don't think that's anybody's intention, but just be cautious of kind of casually throwing out that term, because it makes somebody that actually does have OCD kind of feel badly about themselves. So just be cautious of that. So I hope this makes sense. Again, short, brief, just a small, kind of example of scrupulosity, what it is. If you have more questions about it, put it in the comment section. Let me know if this is something that you've accidentally, said casually, or if it's something that you actually struggle with. I would love to know. Be sure to subscribe for more videos, and obviously, find me on Instagram. I'm now on Facebook, so find me there too, and continue tuning into my videos. And as always, I wish you many blessings.